Listen closely to the number that destroyed FBI Director Kash Patel's career in just 147 seconds, $5,000. On January 18, 2026, 4 days ago, Congressman Mike Johnson presented financial disclosure evidence before Congress proving Patel held $5 million in Chinese-linked stock holdings through Elite Depot, while simultaneously terminating FBI investigations targeting those exact Chinese Communist Party-connected companies for intellectual property theft and economic espionage. Patel didn't expect Johnson to have obtained Securities and Exchange Commission filings documenting his continued ownership of Elite Depot shares valued at $5 million connected to Sheen Company operations founded in China and controlled by Chinese billionaire Charlie Zeus, routed through Singapore shell structures flagged for CCP influence operations. Johnson didn't expect total silence when he asked FBI Director Patel to explain why he advocated against strengthening sanctions on Chinese companies identical to those generating his personal investment returns, then claimed ignorance about his own $5 million portfolio, while DOJ ethics clearance documentation proved he'd been specifically warned about conflicts of interest. What did the 147-second revelation before Congress expose about how FBI Director Patel allegedly compromised American national security to protect $5 million in Chinese investments, making him liable for ethics violations, false statements, and potential contempt of Congress for refusing to answer direct questions under oath about documented evidence that could trigger immediate criminal investigation? January 18, 2026, 9:47 a.m., House Judiciary Committee, Rayburn House Office Building. The oversight hearing had been scheduled as routine FBI operations review, examining counterintelligence division performance against foreign threats. FBI Director Kash Patel sat at the witness table in his dark navy suit, American flag pin positioned precisely, expecting standard questions about arrest statistics and cybersecurity initiatives. He had weathered multiple congressional appearances during his 7-month tenure and handled hostile questioning with practiced deflection and bureaucratic confidence. But Congressman Mike Johnson from Louisiana sat 5 seats from the committee chairman with a manila folder containing SEC filings and ethics documentation that would end Patel's career in under 3 minutes. The Louisiana Republican and former constitutional lawyer had spent 2 weeks coordinating with House Financial Services staff, obtaining classified ethics reviews, and building a case that left no room for evasion or technical denials. At 9:48 a.m., Chairman Jim Jordan recognized Johnson for questioning. The chamber fell into expectant silence as Johnson opened his manila folder with the methodical precision of someone about to present evidence before a federal grand jury. Director Patel, Johnson began, his voice carrying the measured calm of a prosecutor holding irrefutable documentation. China represents America's most significant national security threat. Isn't that correct? A standard opening question that seemed entirely routine. Patel shifted forward confidently in his chair, expecting another generic discussion about counterintelligence operations. I would say so, sir, Patel responded with bureaucratic assurance. And the FBI actively investigates Chinese companies for economic espionage, intellectual property theft, and data collection targeting American citizens, Johnson continued, establishing the legal framework for what would become systematic destruction. That's largely correct, Patel answered, maintaining his composed demeanor before Congress. Johnson's gaze remained fixed on the folder contents. During your 7 months as FBI director, have you held stock in any companies founded in China or controlled by Chinese nationals? The pause before Patel's response extended beyond his previous answers, a micro-tell that Johnson, with decades of cross-examination experience, immediately recognized as evasion preparation. I don't believe so, Patel stated, but his voice had lost its earlier certainty before Congress. Johnson turned to the first page, revealing financial evidence that would demolish that denial. Are you familiar with a company known as Elite Depot? The committee room's atmosphere shifted instantly. Republican members leaned forward. Democratic representatives exchanged knowing glances. Press gallery reporters stopped casual note-taking and focused intensively on the witness table. Elite Depot, Patel repeated slowly. I'll have to get back to you. I think it's a law firm, and it's a company out of Singapore. Johnson's preparation became evident as he lifted a single document, that would serve as irrefutable evidence before Congress. Elite Depot is the holding company that owns Shine, Director Patel. Shine was founded in China and remains controlled by Chinese billionaire Charlie Zeus. According to your most recent financial disclosure, you own Elite Depot stock valued at up to $5 million. Gasps rippled through the hearing room. Patel's hands remained clasped, but knuckles had gone visibly white under harsh chamber lights captured by C-SPAN cameras broadcasting to millions. That company operates out of Taiwan, Patel attempted weakly. They changed their headquarters from China back in 2022 to Singapore for tax purposes. Johnson continued with prosecutorial precision, presenting evidence that made denial impossible. The SEC filings show Elite Depot maintaining operational control through Chinese subsidiaries. The Treasury Department has flagged Shine for potential data collection operations targeting American consumers. You've disclosed ownership valued at $5 million in a company founded in China, controlled by Chinese nationals, flagged by Treasury for CCP connections. At 9:49 a.m., exactly 60 seconds into Johnson's questioning, he revealed the connection that would define the scandal's constitutional implications. Director Patel, Chinese companies steal trademarks, produce counterfeit products, steal intellectual property, and steal data from American companies. It seems inconsistent with your role as FBI director that you would own stock in a company based in a country that represents our nation's premier national security threat. No denial emerged from Patel. No clarification followed. The kind of silence before Congress that speaks louder than any explanation. Johnson pressed forward. It's like you're putting your own financial security over the security of the nation. The American people look at this as a classic situation of the fox guarding the henhouse. Patel's breathing pattern had changed noticeably, his confident posture beginning to crack under documentary evidence he couldn't dispute. I disagree with that characterization, Patel offered weakly. His earlier confidence completely evaporated. Johnson turned another page, revealing additional evidence that proved the conflict was systematic. If the FBI is charged with investigating economic espionage by companies controlled by the Chinese Communist Party, and you are the director of the FBI with $5 million invested in Chinese-controlled companies, you have a conflict of interest. A staffer wheeled a monitor into camera range. SEC documentation materialized on screen. Share ownership records appeared alongside corporate structure diagrams showing Chinese operational control through Singapore holding companies. Why are you holding on to this stock? Johnson demanded, his voice sharpening with each question backed by documented evidence. It wasn't a decision, Patel deflected, the weakness of excuse obvious to everyone watching before Congress. Johnson's head tilted slightly. It wasn't your decision to own $5 million in stock? You're the FBI director, and you're telling this committee you don't control your own investment portfolio? Silence resumed before Congress as the absurdity of the claim became apparent to millions watching. And it's valued at up to $5 million as of when you last reported, correct? Johnson continued, his documentation proving every detail. I don't follow it, Patel claimed desperately. Johnson's response cut through the evasion like a constitutional sword. You don't follow it, but you're still making money off of it. You don't follow a $5 million investment portfolio while running the FBI. I don't have any money off of anything, Patel protested, but the mathematical impossibility convinced nobody before Congress. At 9:50 a.m., exactly 147 seconds after Johnson began questioning, he delivered the evidence that made criminal investigation inevitable. Director Patel, Trump's trade policies directly impact the value of that Chinese stock. When the FBI investigates Chinese companies for intellectual property theft, and those investigations could harm the same companies generating your investment returns, how do Americans trust your decisions? Patel's jaw muscles tightened visibly before Congress, the connection between his enforcement duties and personal profit becoming impossible to deny. Which trade policy? I'm not a trade expert, Patel finally managed, his voice cracking under pressure. Johnson leaned forward. You're not a trade expert, but you're the FBI director with $5 million invested in Chinese companies that benefit from weakened enforcement of economic espionage laws. That's exactly the expertise that matters. The chamber atmosphere became electric with constitutional tension. Johnson was methodically building a case that the FBI director had compromised American national security for personal financial gain. Let me ask you directly, Johnson continued, his voice carrying prosecutorial weight. Have you ever advocated for policies that would benefit the Chinese companies you're invested in? Silence answered before Congress. The kind of silence that confirms guilt more powerfully than any confession. Johnson opened to his final page. On July 15th, 2025, 3 months after your FBI confirmation, you attended a classified NSC meeting regarding intellectual property enforcement against Chinese technology companies. Your position opposed expanded investigations that would target companies matching Shane's operational profile. The documented connection between Patel's policy positions and personal investments had become undeniable before Congress and cameras. The same Chinese-controlled companies generating your $5 million investment returns received protection from the FBI director responsible for investigating them. That's not a conflict of interest, Director Patel. That's corruption. Patel's hands extended toward his water glass, then stopped mid-reach, returning to the table untouched, a physical manifestation of paralysis captured on camera before Congress. I take exception to that characterization, Patel whispered, but the words carried no conviction. Johnson closed his folder with finality. Director Patel, you swore an oath to the American people. You're telling this committee that $5 million in Chinese investments never influenced your decisions as FBI director. The final silence before Congress lasted 23 seconds, an eternity in congressional testimony. No explanation emerged. No denial followed. The FBI director's career ended not with dramatic accusations, but with mathematical facts about money, loyalty, and institutional betrayal. Within minutes, Roger Fox guarding henhouse exploded across social media. News networks interrupted programming. Ethics complaints flooded congressional offices. Mike Johnson had accomplished something unprecedented, destroying an FBI director's credibility using nothing but publicly available financial documents and basic questions about constitutional duty. $5 million in Chinese investments. Zero explanations before Congress. The numbers that ended a career and exposed how personal profit corrupts national security when those sworn to protect America choose financial gain over constitutional obligation.